Vous êtes live, Thibault. We can't hear you, though. No.
Because I was muted.
Okay.
So I will share my screen now. Let me know if you can see my slide. Up. Can you see them? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Thibault Ghirardi. I'm the managing director of the French entity of 2degrees Investing Initiative. And today I would like to talk about why will private investor play a key role in shifting the trillions. So let me start by explaining what do I mean by shifting the trillions. If we want to transition toward a neutral economy, a net zero economy, we need a massive and transformative transition. First, massive. So let's have a look at this chart. I won't go into the details of the numbers because they are from 2018, but just to give you an order of magnitude, if we want to move towards this net zero economy, we will need trillions of investment in greening energy systems. And if we compare this to the current investment into fossil fuels, that is 3 times the current investment. And if we look at the current investment into green finance at this stage, it's very, very, very low compared to what we need. So we will really need a massive reallocation of financial flows to the green economy and greening the energy system. But this transition will also need to be really transformative. Let's look at the sectors that we will need to transform, such as oil and gas, such as coal power, automotive. We will need to deeply decarbonize them and substitute them quickly by low carbon sectors that really need to grow fast. And at this stage, those oil and gas, coal power, sectors, they are really key for the economy. And I would say low carbon sectors, they are really a low part of the economy. So this transition will need to be massive and transformative. But let's also try to put those numbers into perspectives and share some good news also. And for this, I will look at the funding gaps for this transition in European Union. I will use some numbers that we shared in our latest report and that were provided by my colleague 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃. And so here we are really looking at the funding gap in the European Union 2020-2023, and we will try to compare this gap with the savings of European households. So you all know that we have reductions emissions targets in Europe by 2030, and they have been recently updated. But even let's use the numbers that we have, and to give you an order of magnitude, the funding gap for this transition to reach those emission reductions in terms of investment into renewables energies and energy efficiency is around 340 billions. That's huge. That's right. But if we compare this to the share of annual gross household savings in Europe in 2019, that's less than 30% of those savings. And that is what I meant by when I said in introduction that private investors can play a key role in the transition, because if we manage to reallocate their savings to renewable energy and energy efficiency fundings, that could be part of the solution. So that's the context. Now what we need to understand is, okay, we have this potential solution, but is that realistic to consider this solution? And for this, let's try to understand what we need, what needs to happen. If we want to go this way and allow the households, the retail investors, to really contribute to the low carbon transitions, we need them to have an impact in the real economy. And when I say an impact in the real economy, I mean we need their investment decisions to really generate CO2 and GHG reduction emissions in the real economy. But okay, I talked about impact. Let me explain what I mean by impact. Impact, that's what I said. That is a change in the real economy. We know that company can have direct impact. Let's say that a company closes or shut down a power plant, a coal power plant. This will directly decrease CO2 emissions in the real economy. So now what will happen with investor impact? Investor impact is indirect. They can't directly lead investment decision from retail investors can't directly lead to CO2 reduction in the real economy. What they can do is, first, they can contribute to the growth of companies that have an impact in the real economy, or they can change the behavior of companies and incentive them to have an impact in the real economy. So this is what we call investor impact. This is the influence that an investor has on a company that could lead ultimately into changes in the real economy. And as I said, this impact is uncertain and indirect. And let me explain into details why. Let's take a private investor A that decides to invest in a project B of a financial institution C. Let's imagine that he decided to put his money in this product because the financial institution managing the product has a commitment in terms of reducing the carbon footprint of the portfolios. If the private investors really want to be sure that putting the money into this product will lead to changes in the real economy, they need to go through what we call the theory of change. That is to say, the financial institution has commitments. Those commitments, they need to turn into climate action. So they say they would reduce the carbon footprint of their portfolio. They need to implement climate action to do this. For example, a climate action can be filing a shareholder resolution or divesting from high carbon sectors. Then those climate actions, they need to turn into outputs. That is to say that, for example, the shareholder resolution need to be passed at the general meeting, and we need the work of the investee to increase. And then the output need to turn into an outcome. For example, to implement the shareholder resolution and to answer the shareholder and to answer the work increase, the company will shut down a coal power plant. And then the outcome need to turn into impact. That is to say, the closing of the plant will result in X% reduction of the company GHG emissions in the real economy. And you can see that at each stage of this theory of change, there is high sensitivity to external factors. So it's not because a financial institution will file a shareholder resolution that this shareholder resolution will pass into the General Assembly. It's not because the work of a company increases that this increase will be strong enough to encourage the company to close a power plant. And this is not because there is the shutdown of a power plant that this will directly decrease the CO2 emissions in the real economy, because they can replace it by another power plant that may be worse, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So my point is really for you to understand that between the moment where the private investor is making an investment decision, and the moment where changes in the real economy will happen, there is a lot of uncertainty, and there is a high sensitivity to external factors. So now that's the problem, I would say. Let's try to find solutions. And even if there is a high uncertainty at this stage, based on scientific evidences, we know that some mechanisms could be more effective, I would say, in terms of having an impact than others. And we know this because Julian Ковбел and Florian Hibb made a meta-analysis of all the scientific evidences related to impact mechanisms, and they provided this grid, which allows us to understand the level of evidence for each mechanism. So for example, if the level of evidence is D, it means that we only have narrative, and that's those narratives are saying that the mechanism should be effective, but we don't really know, we don't really have scientific evidence about this. We also have the level C, which is the model-based prediction. So we have models that are saying that the mechanism should be effective, but those models are run into certain assumptions, and they are prospective models. Then we have empirical evidences, so studies showing that the mechanism has been effective in scientific settings. But yet it remains unclear how far this finding can be generalized. And the best level of evidence is the scientific consensus, which is basically systematic reviews of the empirical evidence document, and a scientific consensus on effectiveness of the mechanism. So let's manage the expectations. We don't have scientific consensus on impact mechanisms. But what we know is that the highest the level of evidence is, the highest the impact potential of the product will be. And that's really important to understand, because now, based on this notion of impact potential, we can try to review the financial products that are available on the market, and we can try to understand what is their impact potential. And so now I will share some internal results. This is a report that we are currently drafting, so the numbers are still illustratives. But the idea is that we are currently reviewing the investment strategies of the financial products that are available for retail investors on the French market. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the level of evidence grid that I was sharing previously, applied to the investment strategies that we identified for those products. And what you can see is that at this stage, among the investment strategies that we identified, there is only one for which we have a high level of evidence, which is shareholder engagement. And for the others, the level of evidence is quite low. And when we look at the strategy that are used for the financial products, which is basically the right-hand side of the slide, you can see that most of the strategies, I mean, the strategies that are used the most, they don't have a strong level of evidence, which is complicated and which is challenging, because if we want retail investors to have an impact, they need to have to be able to access financial products with high level of evidence. And at this stage, there is definitely a gap in the market. So once again, I will be fully transparent. This is what we know at this stage based on current scientific evidences. We are not saying that those evidences won't change in the near future. And second point is that this is a first draft of numbers. Those are illustrations. They will probably evolve before the latest version of the report is published. But I think it gives a good understanding of the current situation. So let me try to summarize at this stage what I said. We need a transition that will be massive and transformative. We know that reallocating the savings of European of households, broadly speaking, could be an answer to this transition. For this, we need private investors to be able to put the money where we really need it and to have impact in the real economy to ensure that this will decrease the amount of GHG emissions in the real economy. And for this, they need to be able to access product that can allow impact, which is quite challenging considering the current stage of the market. But now one may ask the question: do retail investors really want to contribute to the low carbon transition? Because there is this potential, but maybe they are just not interested in doing this. So that's why I would like to share with you the results of some surveys that we are doing. And once again, some great news. First, a large majority of retail investors say they want to invest sustainably. Almost 70 to 80% generally, based on depending on the market and depending on the question that we are asking, blah blah blah. But I think what I want you to keep in mind is that retail investors, they are keen to invest sustainably. Second, investing sustainably doesn't equal having an impact. And when you look at this illustration, you can see that so people that want to invest sustainably, they are in green, and in gray, and in blue they are the one not interested in sustainable development and ESG. The people that want to invest sustainably, some of them, they want to do it just to maximize their return. They think that ESG is decreasing risk and is improving financial return, so they want sustainable product just for this. Obviously, there is no evidence that putting money in product of this way will have an impact in the real economy. The second category, which is a light gray, they want to invest sustainably because they want to invest consistently with their values. Let's imagine that you don't have a car, you are going to your office by bike. Maybe you just don't want your money to be used to finance oil and gas. So you want products that are not exposed to such activities. But it's not because you are not investing into those activities that this will decrease CO2 emissions in the real economy. If this is what you want, then you are part of the green category, who are retail investor investors that really want to have an impact in the real economy. And usually this is around 30% of the people to which we are asking the question. So just to put this into perspective, I don't know if you remember, but few slides earlier, I said that 30% of the savings of European Union households, if we reallocate them to the energy transition, that could be enough to bridge the gap. And in the other hand, we are saying that 30% of retail investors, they want to have an impact, and basically they want to contribute to to this transition. So um, we can see it both ways. We can say, okay, that's good, because if 100% of those 30% they are reallocating their money, then we can solve the challenge. And we can see the other way, which is, okay, it would be really complicated for those 100% for those 30% of retail investors to have an impact, even more considering what I just said, regarding the current state of the market. As a reminder, the amount of product that can answer impact expectations on the market is really limited. Um, as I said in the previous slide, if you want to optimize your return via ESG, you can use ESG integration, and there are a lot of products on the market. If you want to invest consistently with your values, you can use thematic funds, you can use exclusion, norm-based screening, best in class, blah, blah, blah. And there are products that can answer those expectations. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we don't have we don't have responsible products, and that we don't have product that can answer sustainability expectations of the retail investors. I'm saying that if you are a retail investor that wants to have an impact, you will need specific impact product, or product with strong engagement, shareholder engagement approach, and this type of product is really limited. I won't go into details, because I know that my colleague 𝗵𝗶𝗆𝗆 will talk about the impact of different financial products and their share on the markets. But it's just also to give a quick introduction and to understand the challenge. So maybe at this stage you are wondering, okay, but what can be the answer to those challenges? And I think we have 3 key levers. The first lever is that we need to raise awareness. We can maybe increase the share of retail investors that want to invest sustainably, and the ones that want to have an impact. But still, we will face the challenge regarding the current state of the market. So we also need to highlight the impact potential of the financial product. We need retail investors to know in which product they can invest. And the last lever that I see is also facilitating access to impactful products. As I said, those are products such as, for example, crowdfunding, private equity funds that are not accessible or easily accessible to retail investors, or that at least are not mainstream. So I think we need to work on this. And to finalize, I would like to have a focus on this lever, the lever number 2, which is highlighting impact potential. And I will use the example of the French financial place. So the first good news is that the French financial place recently released a definition of impact finance. So now they know what an impact product could or should be. So the definition is as followed. Impact finance is an investment or funding strategy that aims to accelerate the just and sustainable transformation of the real economy. So you can see real economy means changing in the real economy CO2 reduction by providing proof of its positive effect. So this is related to the level of evidences I was talking about previously. And the challenge is that this definition relies on three pillars: intentionality, additionality, and measure. And when you want to assess those three pillars, that becomes to be really complicated, because intentionality, it's really complicated to show that a power plant was shut down because of the investment decision of a financial institution. Additionality, it's even more complex. How to explain that 5% of that the financial institution X is responsible of those 5% reduction of CO2 emissions that are due to the closing of the plant. And measurement, that's even more complex. So my belief at this stage is that we won't be able to measure the impact of financial products in the near future and even long term. So we should look for other solutions. We need to have impact information at the level of financial products, because this is to answer retail investor expectations and to ensure the financial flows reallocation. But we need to move to a new type of information. And to find the solution, I would like to use the example of medication. So for a specific medication, you can know ex ante what will be the impact of the medication on each people, or on each person. But what you can do is ex ante, trying to understand, based on scientific evidences and your understanding of health, what should be the impact of the medication on people. And then you can also do some large scale trials. So obviously that will be really complicated for financial institution, but for financial institution, what you can do is monitoring post ante what has been the impact in the real economy. So my point is that maybe at this stage, the best answer to the challenge of highlighting financial product with high level of impact could be ex ante, trying to maximize investors' impact potential and calculating this impact potential, and post ante monitoring the impacts of the companies that are part of the portfolio. This is the best that I believe we can do at this stage. And I will conclude with the next slide, which is, once again, I wanted to share some good news. So following the release of the definition that I was talking about on the French market, the French financial place has also been working on a grid, which is that will help financial institutions calculating their impact potential at the level of financial products. So basically, this is a grid of 30 questions that you are using to assess a specific fund. This grid is built around three pillars: formalization of the theory of change, practical implementation of the theory of change, and monitoring of the results, plus another pillar, which is communication, but which is not really a pillar as such. And for each question, we have a scoring, basically three levels of practices, and we use those levels to understand the impact potential of the fund. We consolidate all the results, and then we have a number which is between 0 and 100%, which is the level of which is the impact potential of of the fund. And I think it's really important because at this stage you can access risk and investment return profiles for products, but you can't access impact profiles. You can't access impact indicators, impact potentials. And this type of grid is far from being perfect. I would be totally transparent, but is a first step if we want to answer the challenge of shifting the trillions and leveraging the power of retail investors. So that's it on my side. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope that it was clear for everyone.